hear that little voice that's always talking to you. That's the voice of your conscience. That is the intuition. Why don't we have that? So in our leaders today, well, I believe we have a lot of agendas that are going on out there. And if you're a person that's always running from an agenda, agendas aren't necessarily bad. But if you have an agenda that is all about something that you want to accomplish, and you're not looking for what's highest and best for the greater good, then I think that is a challenge. So, we got people rioting on our streets right now. We've got the COVID thing still hanging out there. We've got a lot going on in the country. There may be another wave coming. There may be an economic wave. In spite of all that, how do we lead? Well, I was on a call here a few minutes ago with a fellow by the name, or with Deborah Waitley, who is the daughter of a very well-known psychologist. His name is Dr. Dennis Waitley. And he said this, the world is a mess, but my world is in order. That's what he taught his kids. The world's a mess, but my world's in order. That's what we're talking about today. How do you get your world in order, and how do you become more effective as a leader in times of trouble? Well, listen, I'm so blessed today. I have my very good friend and partner in getting some of the leadership messages out in the world. His name is Colonel Chris Ritchie. He is a career aviation command and control officer. In August, he will have celebrated his 28th year of active duty as a Marine. He is currently serves as the Marine Corps advisor to Air University and as an instructor in the Air War College Department of Leadership and War Fighting. He also serves as the director of the Air War College General Hap Arnold Executive Leadership Series. Colonel Chris Ritchie, welcome to my show.
Ken, it's always great to see you. Good to be on your show today.
Well, we got a lot of chaos in the world, but we don't have to participate in all that chaos. We, at least from watching the news all day, all night, right? I got people doing that all the time. What's happening for you right now? What's going on?
I took some notes for your opening. This individual, you said his world is in order in spite of all of the chaos. And I can definitely relate to that, because what do you want to put your focus on? You watch the news and you see the negativity, and you just kind of feel a complete unraveling of your own senses. So I guess really what you said at the opening of the show has got me thinking. Stay true to yourself, true to your core. There may be chaos around you, but you could be that calming voice in all that chaos, and perhaps not only just lead yourself and your family, but others around you. So yeah, there's a lot of challenging times. I'm nervous about it. I'm frightened by it. I'm upset by it, but let's do the best we can to make a difference, right?
Let's do that today. Let's make a difference today. If you're listening to our show today, you're probably wondering, what do I do next? What is coming next? What is going to happen next? Well, listen, there is a lot of goodness that is coming out of this. We haven't necessarily reached it yet, but you can start on that path today. I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership, Colonel Ritchie, and I want to talk to you about how do we. Let's just start with the basics in leadership. How do we prepare for the worst?
Sure. And I must say up front, the Department of Defense disclaimer, I'm here today as myself. So my viewpoints from my experiences over almost 28 years now, my own personal viewpoints and beliefs, and do not reflect that of the Department of Defense or the Marine Corps or even Air War College where I am. So something we always have to say before we begin to talk. Your question specifically was about preparing in chaos. Is that correct?
How do we prepare for the worst during these times? I think that's where I want to start, because things are happening, things are coming. Do we prepare for the worst, or we just hope for the best? What do we do here?
You know, and the answer to that question is both, and that goes back to my grandfather, who was a baton death march survivor, World War II, prisoner of war for 3.5 years, and growing up, one of the greatest mentors and person that I could ever have in my life. He would always talk about that, son. You should always be an optimist and always prepare for the best, or hope for the best, rather. But if you're not always preparing for the worst, then you're going to find yourself caught flat-footed and unable to react. And I've had some experiences in my time, especially when I was down in Haiti, for on a specific example where preparing for the worst helped us get through a bit of a little crisis.
Mm-hmm. So what happened in Haiti? What happened down there?
So this was about 10 years ago, and I had the privilege to serve in command about 500 Marines and sailors. And we were down in South America providing support and security for medical personnel. It was a humanitarian mission that went to 8 different countries. One of those was Haiti. And as the commander, you prepare well in advance, long before deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And everything seemed like it was going very well. We had been operating for a few days. I was on the ship, had 14 Marines that were ashore. I walked into my command post one morning, seemed like a normal day, and I could tell there's a flurry of activity. And basically what I'd heard from my operations officer was that we had Marines who had come upon the medical site that they were going to provide security for, and it was in the process of being overrun by an angry mob of about 1,000 Haitians. So that was the last that I had heard. I said, well, what's he saying now? Well, sir, we have no radio connectivity. So here I am sitting there as the commander thinking I've just lost 14 Marines and what was supposed to be a humanitarian mission. And what had occurred then at that point is I had faith and confidence that good things were happening, but you just didn't know. I was completely detached, had no idea what was happening. I was able to fly in via helicopter, a gunnery sergeant who was the last of 8 Haitian interpreters. And when he arrived on the scene, which I learned about later, he observed at that point now 21 Marines, all Marines had come to that site, with interlocked arms, basically holding back several hundred Haitians, a mob of people that were angry. They were throwing things, or they were spitting at them and stuff like that. But there was they weren't taking any action other than forming a human shield. And when you talk about preparation, 65 days prior to that event, we had practiced that exact same event in the complete peace and safety of our own backyard and training fields. So being prepared for the worst case scenario is exactly what happened that day. But I got to tell you, it was the hallmarks of the Marines and their personal courage and their character that and really being prepared that honestly saved the day on that particular event.
Wow. Well, let's courage. Let's talk about courage. This is the voices of courage, right?
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Courage to stand in front of a mob and not react. That takes definitely a mindset, definitely a way of thinking. And you can't, if you were in fear, one of those guys could have shot a rifle and the whole mob would have skirted. How do you teach that to people? How do you teach them to be calm under fire?
So you have to, what we did is we put ourselves in the future while we were in the safety and security of still being in the United States. And it all boiled down to really talking through what could possibly occur. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a particular mindset. They have their own biases and their viewpoints, and they're trained to do certain things certain ways. But when you take a knee and actually discuss what's happening and why something bad could potentially happen, it puts the individual in a mindset of understanding. So what we had here was really people who wanted to take advantage of the free medical care that was being provided by non-government organizations and the Navy and the Army medical teams. They weren't coming to look for a fight or to loot or to steal or to even kill. They just wanted medical care for their family members. That's why things turned the way that they did, because they thought that they're going to lose their place in line, and whoever was at the front of the line was going to get the care. So had we not had all these opportunities to really get down to the core issue of what it is that we are doing and why, the Marines at that point in time may have viewed the Haitian people differently. So in other words, instead of viewing them as an angry mob trying to cause hate and discontent and harm, they viewed them as people that were looking to provide medical care for their families. And instead of diffusing, yeah, and there was a UN officer who sprayed the crowd with pepper spray, which got them very angry. And when the gunnery sergeant had arrived, he was pulled immediately out, just made to go away. Haitian police officers started to run into the crowd with batons to beat them, but it was the Marines who grew up in Haiti but had become United States Marines who, in perfect French Creole, Haitian said, "Look, you need to leave. We have this under control." So when this was all said and done, it was the Haitian people that came up and said, "God bless you and God bless the Marines. You saved us from trampling one another. You saved us from the Haitian police, and you were able to get everything calm and orderly and allowed us to start to receive the care for which this humanitarian mission was there to provide."
Well, that's, split second decisions. Split second decisions are either creating chaos or they're creating, happiness or health or wealth or whatever. What do we do with split second decision? How do we, you got to prepare. Now you're in the moment. This is happening. How do you make the right split second decision? How do we do that?
Sure. Yeah, it goes to your core. It goes to who you are. And as we talk about being people of upright character and having discussions and putting yourself in other people's situations, it helps our character grow when we talk about things, worst case scenarios that could go awry. And it's all about leadership from the front as well. So you cannot demand people to be upright character if you yourself don't embody those virtues. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it all boils down to the individual, their upbringing, the character that they have, the character of their leader or their boss, and is that somebody that they look up to?
Yeah.
And then preparing yourself for worst case scenarios,
So you and I talked about this before the show, but we're talking about values, okay? So we're talking about core values. So you have to have those core values. Now, a lot of times there's peer pressure. For instance, the people in the Haitians in the mob, they're a mob mentality. There's some peer pressure to do different things, right? You and I talked about that truth seems to be, or integrity is more powerful than illusion or lies or misinformation. It's just more powerful. So how do we stay in integrity when we're in a riotous situation or a place where all of a sudden you're in a peaceful march and now somebody else is going out and they throw a rock through a window? How does one stay in their own truth? That's a good question.
It is a good question, and you can imagine how difficult this would be. In fact, there was two of my young officers that had been stuck on the ship, and they wanted to go and do something. And so I sent them on this particular day. They weren't trained in this. They didn't know what was about to happen. When this was all said and done, they came back and said, "Oh, sir, I can't believe it. It's the first time I got off the boat, and this is what I went through." And I'm like, "Well, how did you handle it?" So I asked them these questions, and they said that yes, they were scared because they didn't know what was going to happen. So there's physical courage right there. You were in face of that. You were facing adversity. You don't know what is going to happen to you, and you've got a weapon right here. All you have to do is pull it out, point it, shoot it, whatever, and you're defending yourself. So the ability to suppress that is where moral courage comes into play. And they knew that had they done that, a bad situation could have gotten incredibly worse. So having the moral courage to do the right thing in spite of the adversity that was facing them allowed them to really become leaders for everybody who was observing at that point in time. The people that were taking a part of this violence, if you want to call it that, had never seen that before. They had only received batons and being dispersed and pushed out of the way and aside. And what we had was resolute leaders who just stood there with arms interlocked, speaking via the bullhorn in their language, explaining to them, we're here to help you. We're not going to cause you any harm. We need you to become orderly, get in line, and we'll do everything we can to ensure everybody is seen today. And I guess what I'm getting at is their moral courage and their physical courage inspired all players, the Haitian police, the mob, and other Marines that were around them with the interlocked arms. And that's why I tell my girls every time, one person with integrity, one person with courage is going to be the majority in every situation, because you're going to lead others to achieve that same level of character and greatness that you're espousing.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, I'm going to take a break here for a moment and just give a shout out to our sponsors, and hope you'll continue to stay on here with me, Colonel Ritchie. And for those of you that are just joining Voices of Courage, you can get all our replays at voicesofcourage.us. And if you'd like to give us a shout out on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, just look for Voices of Courage. We'd love to have you join our show. And for those of you who'd like to email me, just email viewer@voicesofcourage.us. And what else do I want to say? If you're enjoying the content of this show, there's a couple networks that we're on, 3 of them that I'd like to mention today, that they're dedicated. These networks are dedicated to empowering you, to helping you to have a better life, have more of diverse points of view, so that you can make choices that are wise and courageous in your own life. So the first one I like to mention is UK Health Radio. And then the other one I'd like to mention is Talk Radio New York City, and also BBS Radio. So the 3 of my sponsors. You can find them at UK Health Radio, Talk Radio .NYC, talkradio.nyc, and bbsradio.com. Hope you'll check them out. And if your company or organization is out to change the world, and you need a team that produces results, I have that team. They're called Wasabi Publicity. Wasabi has been recognized by PR Week, Good Morning America, for their innovative business practices. And so if you're an author, a speaker, a organization committed to changing the world, and you need a partner to support your PR efforts, I encourage you to check out Wasabi Publicity at, let's see, where are they? wasabipublicity.com, wasabipublicity.com. In fact, the CEO and owner of that organization, Drew Gerber, will talk to you directly. So I hope you check them out. All righty. Well, listen, I'm talking to Colonel Chris Ritchie. If you just joined us, Chris is a career aviation command and control officer. And in August this year, he will celebrate 28 years as an active Marine serving our country. So, Chris, it's so blessed to have you here, man. I always love having you on my show. Burdens versus blessings, brother. Burdens versus blessings. Let's go down that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good having such a good friend with you, because every time we talk, these thoughts and ideas, come out. But maybe about a year ago or so, I was having a tough time. There's just you feel like the whole world is kind of turning on you, and you're just focusing on all these hardships and challenges and problems that you have. I suppose there's a lot of people that are going through that today. And I just figured out, you know what, I'm just going to write every one of these down, all these burdens that I have, and I'm just going to pray that they are taken away from me, if you will. And by the time, it was a lot, I got down to the end of a full page, right? And I got to the end, and kind of something said, these aren't burdens, these are blessings, right? And I thought for a minute, and as I looked at each and every one of those, I very clearly could turn one of those and flip it into a blessing and look at it from a different perspective, if you will. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I discussed now. It's all about attitude and perspective, and what a powerful tool that is, that you can dwell on all of the negative things that you're going through in life, or you can uplift yourself and feel yourself to be blessed and look at all the positive aspects, which I think that's where true change can come into play. Like, I had a lot of medical issues. I had to have surgery for a ruptured Achilles, so I wasn't exercising, and it was really upsetting me. It was a burden that I'm having to ride around on a scooter, for crying out loud. But what a blessing that I live in a country that has such wonderful medical care, and I had such terrific surgery. I was well on my way to recovery, and I knew that better times were ahead where I could begin to exercise and work out again. So the burden kind of disappeared and really became a blessing. So it's perspective. How do you view things?
Perspective. Okay. So how do you change your perspective if you're in a point of view? Let's say you're watching the news all the time right now. Maybe you got some Marines doing that, right? They're turning on the TV and maybe a little too much, right? And they're getting these mainstream media perspectives, and they're going, wow, I'm afraid now. I'm angry. I want to get out there and go do something, right? I don't know about you. I've learned that, we lose our power most of the time when we're angry, right? When we're calm, we make calm, powerful decisions. We're angry, we do kind of stupid things, a lot of people. So how do we change our perspectives?
You have to want to change, first and foremost. If you find yourself in a bad position, whether it's your thought or your fitness or what you're seeing on the news, what do you want to put into your mind and into your soul and into your being? Negativity or positivity? Or do you want to be a change agent? Do you look at all these things that are happening, and do you want to get into a fight on Twitter with somebody, or do you want to just be a calming voice and not go with the crowd and not allow yourself to have those emotions of anger stirred up inside of you? So, to change your perspective is going to require you to want to change your perspective. And you may not know that, but that's the first step, and that's the first leap. And that's where real change can begin to occur.
That's really good. I think if you change your perspective, you can change your world. You can change your life. I know that I personally have been able to do that. I've gone from from being bitter to being better just by changing perspective. Right? How about you?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So funny. A chaplain who came out to visit me and my Marines many years ago, 2002. And that's something that he said, that we were going through a hard time. We didn't know how long we were going to be there. It seemed like it was never going to end, a very long deployment. And a lot of folks were kind of getting downtrodden over that and very upset. And he just addressed all of the Marines in the group and said, look, when you get through this experience, you're going to have a choice. Do you want to look back upon this experience and be very bitter over the amount of time that you're away from your families and the challenges and the hardship that you endured? Or are you going to look back upon this and recognize it for what it was? It made you a better person. It made you a better individual, and you learned from your experiences. So it's one letter, two words, world of difference.
Yeah, world of difference. All right. Listen, 2015, you had loss, I believe, of your mom.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct. January 2015.
That was, I'm sure that was tough for you and your family, and then you had another loss, didn't you, at that time? Do you have another?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. 7 weeks later, my father passed away. So lost both my parents within 7 weeks of one another.
People right now in the country are losing their jobs. They're losing their families. Some people have lost loved ones. Some people have died. When loss comes, it's difficult. And for some people, they lose a pencil and they get upset and they hurt. They get angry. Right? I can't. And I lost my brother. I lost my mom, my dad. So I know that loss feels like. So, as a leader, how do we address that, and where do we look for the blessings, as we were talking about in that? What happened to you? What's your story there?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. At first when my mother passed away, yeah, very sad. I mean, I just come back from being a couple years overseas, and then she passes away within just a couple of months. Um, I was with my brothers, and I were able to come together and attend, conduct the memorial service and bury her the way that she wanted to be. We were all very shocked, very upset, and did not know really where to go. It was like everything just got flipped upside down on us. And standing out there in the driveway, and my brother sticks out his hand on my shirt and says, "Hey, don't move, don't move!" And he pulls his hand away, and there's a ladybug on his hand. And this is January in North Carolina, so it's really cold. Well, this is really weird. So he Googles ladybugs in wintertime, and basically, the story says that ladybug is named after the Virgin Mary, and if somebody's visited by a ladybug, it's basically telling you to be at peace, and everything's okay. That really blew us away at that point, and changed everything about our perspective once again, with the loss of our mom, telling us that it's okay. I mean, yes, it is a tragedy that they're gone, and it's sad, but their memory is going to be with you forever. And so be happy that you had a mom, and be happy with the memories that you've got. Be happy that you're the person that she wanted you to be. Um, and it's funny, that ladybug stayed with us for the longest time, all the way to her grave. And it
Wow.
finally then left us and went onto a beautiful rose in the middle of her, where she had just been buried, and then disappeared. And it was closure. So I guess you could say it's having peace in loss. Then 7 weeks later, when my dad passes away, we go to his memorial service, and what was sitting right there on the door as we're entering the church, but a ladybug. Like, really? This is weird. So that gave us a very calming presence, and made us feel that they were both with us. And every time we see a ladybug, which is often, we're reminded that your loved ones are always with you, so long as you keep their memory alive and honor them with your life and how you are and how you treat others.
One thing I love about this show and interviewing people like yourself, Chris, is the mindset that success has. Success leaves clues, and you're leaving clues for the audience, if they're listening right now, as to what the beliefs, the understanding, the points of view, the perspective is of a leader. And I admire you for that. I admire your leadership abilities and the way that you've changed your life around. Let me take just a slight little dive into what changed you the most through your life. What do you think that catalyst for change that built the leader that you are today?
Yeah. And it's funny, I just returned from a trip down to the beach, and there's a picture right behind me of the beach. There's just so much serenity and calmness when you're looking at what God has created, right? And I don't know what made me think of this, but I thought about when I was 10 years old, I would ride my bike, make a little bit of money for chores. I'd ride my bike outside the neighborhood to this gas station where I'd buy sports cards and candy bars and stuff like that. One day I didn't have any money, and I stole a candy bar. Took it all the way back to my house, went up to my room, and I was about to eat it, and something made me stop, and I just felt so bad that I was doing something so wrong that I couldn't live with myself. It was a 25-cent candy bar. I put it back in my pocket, got on my bike, rode all the way back to the gas station, snuck in there where the box was that I took it from, and I returned the candy bar, and went back home. It sounds silly, but I wonder what would happen if I didn't return that candy bar and I ate it. Where would that have taken me as far as a path? And it's all about character once again. I mean, my parents instilled character in me. My grandparents did the same thing, Bible school and church. But ultimately, you're the one who makes the choice of doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing. And the more that you do the right thing, the stronger your character, your core becomes. The more you do the wrong thing, the further down you go in a different path. So I'd say that it happens all the time, daily, when you're challenged. And are you going to do the right thing or wrong thing, especially when nobody is watching, because that's where your true character has a chance to shine.
You know, I find leaders that they generally have habits, success habits that they bring into their life every day. I'd like to talk to you about that, but before I do, I just want to give a shout out to one of my sponsors, Women's Wisdom. Women's Wisdom is an organization of women entrepreneurs, and they have bi-monthly meetings that they bring in celebrity speakers. They have networking. They have a lot of fun together, and they help each other to grow their businesses and grow their lives. They've been around, like I said, since 1991, and they would like you to join them. So if you're a woman entrepreneur, you might want to check them out at womenswisdom.net. That's womenswisdom.net. I do hope you'll check them out. And I also encourage you to give us a like, give us a shout out on Facebook. Let us know your comments, your questions, any topics you'd like us to address on this show. This show is for you. It's about helping you to develop more insight, more courage, more connections to that power that lies within all of us. So I hope you'll take me up on that. All righty. I am in studio, as you know. If you just joined me, I'm with Colonel Chris Ritchie, and he currently serves as a Marine Corps advisor to Air University and as an instructor in the Air War College Department of Leadership and War Fighting. He also serves as a director of the Air War College General Hap Arnold Executive Leadership Series. Colonel Ritchie, I realize that you do not represent the opinions of the service, the different areas that you serve, but you're giving your own opinions here, and I'm glad to have you here. So, the question I posed right before we went to the break, can you answer that?
I can, habits that you have. Now I can tell you up front, there's habits that I wish I had, and there's habits that I actually have. And I guess always striving to be better is one of those. But really, the habits that I have, believe it or not, I enjoy reading. I really enjoy writing and reflecting. And I think those three have really helped me out when it comes to knowing who you are and why you feel certain ways and what your belief system is, being true to yourself. So hard to do that if you don't read and expand your horizons, especially from experiences of others and history, of course. But I really love to write, and it makes you go into a much deeper level of critical analysis of why you think the way that you are, and your being, and the way you view leadership. But if we don't take a moment to just sit back and reflect, also, then you're going to get caught up in the chaos and the noise of everyday living. So those are habits I try to live by.
Yeah, I do live by those too. In fact, I wrote a book a while back. It's called The Courage to Change Everything, right? And it's daily strategies and essential wisdom to unlock your inner genius. So I practice that every day. I read that book every day, and I journal every day because it helps me to get focused, get clear. I remember some of the wise things that not only others have said, but I've actually written in that book to remember. So it really moves my life forward. So, by the way, if anybody wants to find out about that book, they can go to couragetochange.us. Again, couragetochange.us.
Awesome book.
Thank you. So let
Mhm.
me talk a little bit about Nicaragua in
Oh
2000.
yeah,
Yeah, you remember
yeah,
what's going on there.
yeah.
Let's
That's right.
tie this back into, because we're having this discussion on leadership. So I want to know your take on what happened.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, the leadership from Haiti, the lessons learned. I wrote an article about that, and for the people that are listening, it's, "Oh, I'm not a Marine. I'm not going to be in Haiti." That particular story itself is a lesson in being prepared for worst case scenarios, having the moral courage to do the right thing, even when it's not popular, and being a person of character, which means you're always doing the right thing by others. So preparation, courage, and character. Now, the story for Nicaragua, same deployment, totally different circumstances. And the message here is all about initiative, teamwork, and humility. So we, as a Marine organization, was in Haiti again, providing security for medical teams, but we also had an opportunity to do a what they call a subject matter expert exchange with the local Nicaraguan Navy. It was only 8 people and 8 Marines, so 8 Nicaraguan Navy and 8 Marines, and they had been doing this. Living with one another and doing this exchange for several days was not a very warm reception. In fact, there were Sandinista flags all over the island, all over the place where we were conducting our training, and you could tell there's a little bit of friction or animosity. Marine Corps has a long history in Nicaragua, which isn't necessarily the best of histories. There was friction, and we weren't. Let's just say we weren't allies. Anyway, long story short, I'm on the ship one night, and there's a non-government organization called Give a Kid a Backpack, where they were there just to provide backpacks full of school supplies for children that were needy. And she's sitting there eating dinner, looking very upset. And I'm like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And she says, "I've got these hundreds of backpacks, and there's no place for me to provide them." I thought, well, that's interesting because we're over here training on this island. There's a school. There's lots of kids all over the place. Maybe we can do something. So I just turned it over to the Marine lieutenant who talked to the staff sergeant, and boom, the next thing you know, they took the initiative. They could have easily said no. They're not treating us well. We don't care about that. But they took the initiative and they took action, and they came up with a great plan of how they were going to make this happen. And they made it happen through teamwork. And teamwork means they put their own desires aside and they lifted up others. And they said, you have something that we have a common purpose. We would like to help this organization do their mission, but and we're sure that you would like to help the children of this island where you live and work. And it turned out to be incredible. The Nicaraguan Navy sent a boat all the way out to the ship. We unloaded all of the supplies, and the Marines took it from there. And the incredible part of the story, getting to the other leadership principle, is humility. So the principal had shut down school, and we had our Marines, a couple of other folks that were there. I was still back on the ship, and the original scheme of maneuver was going to be the Marines to take out to be handed the backpack and then to hand it to one of the kids. And as this was occurring, they just completely removed themselves from the situation altogether, took a complete back door, and had all the limelight shine on the Nicaraguan Navy people. So they pulled them up to the front, and they became the major participants of ensuring that these children were provided things and supplies that they would have otherwise never had. Now, at the end of this, the Nicaraguan Navy personnel were in tears. They were really thankful and said, "You have no idea what this means to us, because everybody here is very poor, and we're even more poor, and we can't do anything for this community. They're always doing things for us, and you've given us the opportunity to those in the eyes of this island and these kids and these families, and we'll never forget you for that." And they basically they struck a wonderful partnership and friendship. So up until that point, there was friction and perhaps animosity. Following these 8 Marines, young Marines, Lance Corporal to Sergeant, because of their initiative, their teamwork, and their humility, change hearts and minds. And that's all about character and courage as well. So that's the Nicaragua story.
You know, and I love that. And you know what I love about it is that you know, the mainstream media doesn't necessarily publish these types of stories. They all seem to be looking for what's wrong, and you know, the biggest drama, the biggest problem. You know, but we don't hear these down to earth. This is what happens with our military on the ground with effective leadership. I just love that. So kudos to you guys. Kudos to that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I was proud of those Marines.
I'll bet you were, man. Those guys are really, they rocked it. Yeah. You know, I guess it also speaks to this, you know, it's a small group of people can make a huge difference. Yeah. So I just love that. All right. So listen, Chris, I told you I was going to ask you a couple of deep questions here, and
yeah, you did.
I like to do that. I've got a little time here. Chris, let's talk about you a little bit. You know, what drives you, my friend? What is your what's your driver that gets you up in the morning, gets you want to get out and have an amazing life? What is it? What is that?
Yeah. You know, I just want to make a difference. It boils down to that. If I can make a difference in somebody's life, then that's what I call success. You know, for several years, I just wanted to be personally very successful in my profession. And round about the time that I was a senior level captain, I realized life is not about your own personal success. Life is about the success that you enable in others. And if you can help enable somebody to achieve their full potential, a colleague, a child, your spouse, then you've made a difference in their life. And you may not be looked at as a success, but does that really matter if you've made such a great difference for somebody else?
I think it
that's
makes
what drives me.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And yeah, I like to do things and not get found out. I just like to be a service and not you know, just do it because I do it. You know, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll ask a question like, what can I do to make my wife's life better, or my life better, or my family's life better? And I just go do it. You know, I think that's the mindset of success. Chris, what would you say are the core values that have led you into the success you've had in your life?
Sure. You know, if you don't have your own personal priorities and values, if you will, then you're going to fall for anything, right? So personally, I have priorities in this order: God, family, country, Marine Corps. And those are the values that really drive me, or my priorities that help drive me. So if you find yourself with a conflict that you'll be in line with one of those priorities, but perhaps not in line with another, then it's important to have those prioritized. You know, heard it best described many years ago that God's an eternal commitment. Your family is an entire lifetime commitment. Marine Corps, I love it. It's been precious to me. I can think of nothing else that I would have rather been while living on this planet. But after 30 years of active duty service, that time will be over. And then I'm full-time dad and full-time husband, you know. And then, of course, I love my country. We're all blessed to be a part of this wonderful nation. And I'll always be an American as well. So I guess you could say those are priorities. Values, if we want to be more specific, is really just the golden rule, you know, doing to others as you'd have them do unto you. And sometimes that's hard because we have